Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Welcome to Top 5 from The Ray Taylor Show, where each week I usually am ranking movies in a variety of categories, from franchise to subgenre to directors and actors. Obviously, in this episode, I'm doing a bit of TV ranking. But no film or TV episode will go unwatched as I break down my top 5 picks. So join me every Sunday for new episodes and get ready to dive into the world of film and television with Top 5 from The Ray Taylor Show. In this episode, I am ranking my top 5 Black Mirror episodes from Season 3. I previously did, last week, I did top 5 from episodes 1 and 2, as they weren't very long episodes, so a total of 6 or 7 episodes, I think, out of the 2 seasons. And this one is just a single season, Season 3 of Black Mirror. And for those that aren't aware, Black Mirror is a science fiction anthology series that explores the dark and sometimes satirical aspects of modern society and technology. Each episode presents a standalone story that takes a critical look at the impact of technology on human behavior and relationships. The show often features a twist ending and presents a bleak and sometimes dystopian view of the future, which I love. Obviously, why not live and check out dystopian futures as to prepare society as we slowly become one ourselves. It's known for its thought-provoking and sometimes chilling stories that make viewers question the role of technology in their lives. The series is considered a modern-day Twilight Zone in a lot of ways, and is popular for imaginative, suspenseful, and societal relevant stories. Socially relevant stories, I should say. So let's get into my top 5 episodes from Black Mirror Season 3. Starting off with my 5th favorite episode. This is a episode that I really this is one, many of the Black Mirror episodes, very unique ideas, taking what is happening culturally and seeing how that may manifest itself in a near future with different technology being available. And that episode that kind of fits that little niche of this show for me is my number 5 is Hated in the Nation, which is the last episode 6. I didn't write down which episode it is, but Hated in the Nation is the last episode that got released in Season 3. Right? It's basically, let's say, if online hate became real, right? This is the ultimate cancel culture in a lot of ways, right? Where you have these pollination robots that were created, right? These robotic bees, which actually exist now. They just announced, I saw an article recently, they're not necessarily designed to look like bees, but they have designed robots for the purpose of pollination. That is a real thing now in our world, and is a big aspect of this episode. So they have these pollinator robots, and it definitely touches on that fear that a lot of people have, fear of autonomous robotics, whether it's self-driving cars or other types of machinery that are capable of being hacked and then controlled for evil purposes. It's also commenting on the trend of online hate, which conservatives label as cancel culture, which in most cases for that, it is holding somebody responsible for illegal behavior in most instances. But there is definitely that type of online hate culture that comes from the right wing, which tends to be a lot more focused on hate speech and violent rhetoric and threatening of lives and wishing for death upon people. Definitely a next level of hate speech that can come with a group of people online. And basically, it is in this show. There's a trend going online where if somebody uses the hashtag, a certain hashtag, and if enough people becomes the trending thing, then that person ends up dead, right? And they find out that it's these bees that are just one bee gets to that person, burrows in their skull, in their brain, basically forcing them to die one of the most excruciating deaths possible, right? Horrific, right? So it is a combination of people's fear of these autonomous robotic things that are supposed to be doing good in the world, paired with collective online hate. And I really enjoyed this episode. It is very interesting. And the twist at the end is really it is brutal, the twist. Obviously, I will be spoiling these episodes, so if you haven't seen Black Mirror, because the twist of these episodes is a lot of the reason in many cases, not always, but usually a big reason why these episodes are on the list, where they're on the list, or on the list at all. Spoiler warning for these episodes, for these picks. But the twist, I'll probably try not to spoil them too much, but the twist of this is that not only did they find out that it's it's this hashtag that is kind of designating the next target, but the twist really is that all of the people that participated in using that hashtag that led to the deaths of these people, which the reason why this is at number 5 is because the reasonings for these hate is kind of ridiculous and, is kind of common today and wouldn't really spark as much hate as depicted in this movie, which I'll talk about what those are. But the twist is that then all of the people that participated then became targets, and almost 500,000 people died, right? That is the twist that we find out at the end, that this whole thing ended up being a genocide for everybody that participated. Now, the reasons why this doesn't hold up: 1, 400 million people dying because of online behavior and information being passed online. If you were to compare that to, let's say, a pandemic that recently happened, and you look at the body count for, let's say, the United States, that is probably at this point well over 1 million people have died because there was a concerted effort for a lot of people to disregard any kind of precautions that could be taken to protect other people as well as themselves, including celebrities, including politicians, including doctors that wanted to seize the moment to sell books, who backed a lot of misinformation and bad science. I would say all of those people have blood on their hands. The people that disregarded the vaccine, that disregarded the virus in general, that put out misinformation. And to this day, there's tons of people that still hold those beliefs and don't care and think it was fake, or think that the virus, the vaccine is somehow dangerous, or the amount of insane beliefs have forever polluted society. And all of the popular people online that kind of pushed those narratives, I would say, are a bit responsible. And to say that having a body count of 400 million people who participated in a thing online compared to well over 1 million people in this country for people that have participated online for hate, doesn't hold up. And a lot of the things that these people got the hate tweet from, the first one was a reporter who made a clickbaity article about a woman in a wheelchair, right? That stuff happens so often. The majority of articles online are clickbaity and take advantage of disabled people regularly. Another one was a celebrity who criticized a kid that was a big fan of his, publicly criticized them, and got some heat from it, right? Which is whatever. Meanwhile, in reality, we have somebody like Kanye who is a fanboy for Hitler, right? Okay, so a little bit off balance there. Another one was, what was another one? God, there was more. Oh, there was a CEO that had racist emails get exposed. Like, literally happens all the time. Like, there's been, I don't know how many sports, like, coaches in athletics. I think some of them they're victims of quote unquote cancel culture, but I don't think people were calling for their death in any. Maybe there were people. Always that kind of exists, but I don't know. The types of people they chose to highlight as victims of this thing were they don't necessarily hold up into what we see on a daily basis when there's people doing far worse things that and cause far worse damage. But still a premise that I loved, an interesting episode, kind of felt like a X-Files episode in a lot of ways. So coming in at number 5 is Hated in the Nation. And a great, like, the brutal nature of that twist was like, whoa, that's crazy. Because at first it just seemed like, okay, these people are dying. That's kind of crazy too. But then when you see it kind of get flipped is a big one. So moving on to my 4th favorite episode from season 3 of Black Mirror. This is the first episode, and I would say kind of the most original world building that happens in any of these episodes. But, well, maybe. But there's an aspect of it that I had an issue with. That's why it's down here at number 4. But number 4 is Nosedive, which is the first episode of season 3. It is a story where, that highlights the consequences of the negative impact of the rating systems that kind of exist everywhere. Very much like a Yelp for people. And there's definitely been situations where businesses have suffered because of people, in some cases unjustly, rating a business poorly. Very similar in some ways to cancel culture in a way. Kind of that mob mentality of everybody piling on a situation just to pile on. But this is a rating system that exists in society where people rate all their social interactions. And based on your rating, you are privileged to receive better benefits in life and receive access to better things. So it is, helpful to be a nice person. And in many ways, makes everybody seem like they're fake, the fakest type of person, which is very interesting, right? First off, the rating system for everything, very interesting concept. The way everybody dresses and the way everybody acts reminds me of every Sunday working at Costco. Worked there for 13 years. Every Sunday. People that look like they are straight out of this episode, wearing that like pastel clothes, having like this fake happiness, like this fake kind of niceness, are all of the people that got out of church on Sunday. And let me tell you, as somebody that sold electronics and worked in the pizza kitchen at Costco for 13 years, there is no more disgusting human being than a person and a family that just got out of church on Sunday, still wearing their Sunday clothes. There is no person that will treat you like a low-level life form than those people. The most inhuman, disgusting people that I have ever had to deal with. Just disgusting. And they walk around like God has anointed them as the person that shall be and is better than everybody else that did not look exactly like them and go to their church and do all of the things. And that is what a lot of this episode is. Those people wearing that church-like outfits, everybody dressing very similar, everybody acting very similar, which on its face, it's nice to have a society where everybody's nice, but they aren't nice, really. It is 100% fake nice, right? It is the most fraudulent type of nice. It is no genuine niceties at all, which I do appreciate that. The thing I don't necessarily like about this episode is that our main character, who has a 4.2 rating and wants to get up to a 4.5 rating so that she can afford to rent a place, because there are discounts at a community if she has a certain rating. And she gets invited to a friend of hers that has a very high rating. And she's like, if she goes, it's going to bump up her numbers and she's going to be able to get this apartment, right? And she goes to the airport. Her flight is canceled. And she treats the person at the airport, the employee, like shit. And because she treated that employee like shit, she ends up getting a warning through one of the security guards. And part of the warning is to have a full number taken away from her ranking. So she went from a 4.2 to a 3.2. And all of the ratings that she gets, it's temporary, so she'll get that point back. But all of the ratings that she gets in that period are double the damage. And she starts basically she turns into a Karen. She turns into customers that feel like they are entitled to treat people who are in customer service like garbage, right? She acted like all of the fake Christians that would come into Costco on Sunday wearing their church clothes and act like complete assholes to people. Like without like missing a beat every Sunday. You could tell what they're wearing by the way they treat you. It is amazing. I have never been treated like they're calling a dog more, right? The whistle, snap, patting on the thigh, very common way to be treated by these people. That just they treat you like just like the dirty help that is there to fulfill all of their whims, to treat them like kings and queens because that is what they say. That's what they feel they should be treated like because they are such good Christian people. So I don't like the fact that she turns into one of those people. And like I understand from the aspect of this show, this episode, where the desire to be open and honest with your emotions about things. I'm brutally honest for sure. I don't try to pretend. I don't act. I'm not rude, but I'll be honest with things. But that's not necessary. She just wants to be an asshole. But it's also probably like this pent up, how she has never been able to be open and honest with her emotions. But the fact that she takes it out on a customer service person sucks. Because in reality, customer service people get shit on the most. They are treated like garbage and not compensated very well for it. So I wish this system, I would have loved, there were but millions of moments where I would have loved to see many of these people who come in and treated everybody like garbage. I would love to see them all get demoted and get the double damage, right? When she gets punished for acting like an asshole at the airport, I agreed with what happened to her, despite the fact that overall you kind of are sympathetic for her. But even still, she just turns into a mean person. She wasn't as likable. But it's an interesting world, interesting idea. So coming in at number 4 is Nosedive. Let's take a quick break from this episode to talk about, are you a fan of art, movies, and all things entertainment? Then you need to check out youtube.com/inspired disorder. Our page is jam-packed with all kinds of great content, including making of videos of the many faces, an ongoing art series of abstract ink paintings. But that's not all. We also feature daily episodes from The Ray Taylor Show, a podcast that brings you movie reviews, TV show reviews, episode recaps, opinions on news and entertainment, and much more. There's also a weekly diary and top 5 movie rankings of a variety of categories. And if that wasn't enough, we've also got how-to videos covering all kinds of topics. So why wait? Head on over to youtube.com/inspired disorder and start exploring the amazing content we have to offer. And now back to the show. Moving on to my third favorite episode from Black Mirror Season 3. This is an episode that easily could have taken place today. It is an episode that doesn't require any technology that doesn't already exist, but it is a scenario that, despite everything existing and could easily take place today, it is kind of an insane, it is just a crazy story. It is a brutal story. It is full of characters that you kind of feel sympathy for, but as you learn who they more about them and why they're in this situation, you don't. It's a crazy story. So anyway, coming in at number 3 is Shut Up and Dance, right? This is a story about hackers who have basically hack people's systems to install a virus protection software, right? So this kid comes home from school or comes home from work. His sister was using his laptop, a bunch of viruses. So he downloads a virus protection thing, ends up allowing hackers to take control of his laptop, his camera, microphone, all of those things. And they record him masturbating after work. And they not only captured him on camera, but they captured what he was masturbating to. And then as soon as that happens, he gets a call and he is being blackmailed. And he is sent on this like wild goose chase and having to do these different kinds of missions, like picking up, going to a place to receive a cake that is being given to him that he then has to go deliver to another person. And everybody that they interact with on this wild goose chase, that's on this wild goose chase with him, are other people that have also been hacked and that are also being blackmailed, right? And have all done different things. And so he's delivering this cake, he goes to a guy, and then they end up having to go rob a bank, and then they end up having to go this other place, and then he ends up having to fight another guy to the death. It is kind of a crazy thing, and you don't really know, he is definitely scared and doing these things because he doesn't want people to see him jerking off. But as you go, you realize that what he was looking at is why he is so willing to do these things, right? Which some of the people, I would say, wouldn't be as blackmailable with the information, right? One guy cheated on his wife, and he has kids, which guys cheat on their wives all the time and have kids like that. I don't know, right? That's whatever. This is the one where the CEO had racist emails, right? Which is whatever. Stuff blows over so fast. But there were 2 people, this kid and this other guy, who end up having to fight to the death with a camera on them, and you find out that both of them were looking at child porn, which is just it completely makes sense why this kid would be there, and completely at one point you sympathize with them. It's oh man, one, it sucks obviously that he could just have him masturbating on its head would probably encourage most kids to do crazy shit. But to rob a bank, he goes in and robs a bank and he pisses himself because he's so scared. But when you see why, you see just, and if the beginning of this episode where he works at like like a fast food place or whatever, and he gives this little girl a toy. It, like, recontextualizes this character in a way where at one point he was kind of sympathetic, and then it's just like, oh my god, and then he has to fight to the death against this grown-up, and then at the end everything gets released anyway, right? The twist is that they were going to release it anyway. They were just, these hackers were like, let's just see what we can do. And instead of just getting busted for the thing he got busted for, he also robbed a bank. He also murdered a guy on camera, right? So this kid went from innocent yesterday. Maybe he watched some illegal porn previously, right? Maybe this wasn't his first time. But on top of that, which is already inhuman, disgusting behavior, to have also that, by the way, he robbed a bank, pissed himself while he robbed a bank, and on camera killed a person. When he gets a call from his mom, like, she has only heard about the initial thing that he did, which is absolutely disgusting. But all of the other things on top of that is just like, brutal. One of the most brutal episodes by far. And the fact that it all uses like GPS, kind of just basic text messages, it uses technology that exists today. People's computers could easily be hacked by downloading nefarious software that could allow people to get access to what's on your screen, what your camera sees, what your microphones see. So the fact that this could easily be orchestrated today, I mean, this could have been orchestrated probably when this came out, like the past decade or two. But brutal episode, very, very dark in many ways. Like, there is no redeemable characters at all. But that twist is almost like you sympathize with the hackers in some way. Like the hackers actually did a good thing by exposing all of these people. It is a wild episode. That is why at number 3 is Shut Up and Dance. Moving on to my second favorite episode of season 3 of Black Mirror. This is an episode that's a lot of fun. First off, this is an episode directed by Dan Trachtenberg, the director of Prey, the director of 10 Cloverfield Lane, the former co-host of the Totally Rad Show podcast. Somebody I enjoy his work and enjoyed this episode, and was fun to go back and relive this episode. This episode playtest kind of shows, we've all had devices where, you have to update devices. Things have to be installed. And usually if that procedure of installation or upgrade gets interrupted in some ways, can sometimes break the whole device, right? I was getting firmware update for one of my DSLR cameras. The camera battery shut out during the process and then bricked the camera. I could not, it is just a dead camera body. There's no way to fix it, right? So part of that fear is an aspect of this. But it's an aspect of this where brain implants are also involved, which is something that Elon Musk is starting to do. And the idea of this episode is like, what if somebody has a brain implant and during the software installation, there's an interference, right? If you've ever had a cell phone ring in your car, you may hear through the speakers that weird interference, right? And when you're dealing with a brain, probably not something you want to have any interference available at all. And this episode really plays on that fear and what kind of the worst kind of aspects, the worst possible things that can happen when you're doing with that. So you have this guy who decides to go backpacking, create a lot of memories. He was taking care of his dad who had dementia, passed away, and he decided to leave his mom and travel the world and make a bunch of memories because that is what's most valuable, as he saw with his dad, as his dad lost his memories, right? So he's on this trip montage of him traveling all over the place. He's in the UK. It's his last week. He gets another thing that's kind of a fear is having your banking information stolen from your debit card or credit card, right? So he got his card, like the card doesn't have to be physically stolen, but you can clone the card. So his card got cloned when he was, in some Asian country somewhere. And all of these charges racked up, and he has no access to money, so he has to get a gig. So it's also the gig economy, and which is something that he's used on his travels to get extra money. And so he's in the UK. He meets this woman on a dating app. They have a thing. They kind of bond. She's into games. She's a gamer. And he's going through this gig app, and he sees, oh, who's this thing? And she's like, oh, that guy. That's a big game designer. And the gig is to go test a video game, which is interesting, which is something growing up. One of my friends, his parents, was friends with a guy who ran a video game company. I forget Williams Video Games. I forget exactly, but I think they did one of the early Street Fighter game or Mortal Kombat games. But there was one summer where my friend and I were supposed to go get summer jobs being game testers. Never ended up happening, but something that, was almost possible in my life, which seems like a fun thing to play video games that have not been released yet, to work out and identify any bugs that happen. So he gets this gig job to do something similar in this future type of world. He goes in, and it involves getting a brain implant. They take his phone away. So he going in, because this girl that he met is like, if you get a picture of anything in there, you can make so much more money just selling that picture than whatever they're going to pay you. So in a moment where the woman goes to get a page of the contract that's missing, the page that he needs to sign, he grabs his phone that was taken away and shut off. He turns it on, takes a picture, and then here she's coming back and just puts it back, right? Doesn't get a chance to turn it off. So during the installation process of him, after getting the implant done to get that initialized and installed, his mom calls, who's been calling, and he doesn't want to talk to her, but she calls, and you hear that sound that you hear in speakers when your cell phone goes off, that that weird, and you hear that sound, and seemingly doesn't do anything until the twist at the very end. But it's a cool idea. He goes in, and everything we find out is all in his head. This is all imaginary. None of this actually happens. But he's shown this, like, it's augmented reality, shown like this gopher, and that keeps getting bigger resolution. He loves it. She ends up, oh, let me introduce you to the head of this guy. So he meets the guy that runs the company. And he's like, we have this thing, this game, right? He's like obsessed and enamored with how people react to fear and how people feel good and refreshed after experiencing something that was extremely frightening, right? So he has this game where the implant learns all of your fears and puts you in the scariest scenario that you could ever think of. So he's in this like old house or whatever, and crazy things start happening. A giant spider comes and attacks him. There's his old bully from childhood, and then the girl that he knew shows up and is the only thing that's like tangible. Like all of these made up things are just like phantoms. He can pass his hand right through it. But when she shows up, he can actually like touch her, and she's like, things are crazy here. You need to get out of here. Right? And he starts slowly losing his memory, which is another one of his worst fears, right? So this game is like learning that he is frightened to death of losing his memory, as he saw with his father, how he just, you will end up just not knowing anything or anyone or any part of your life. It is like frightening as hell. And then he gets woken up, and in this version, he's in this layer of existence. It's like, oh, his brain was too sensitive. It was way too powerful still. We need to keep doing more testing of it, right? But and then he's like, okay, so then he goes home, travels home, goes back to his mom's house. His mom is there. He's like, hey, Mom. And she's like not really paying attention. She goes to grab the phone and she calls and she's like going to call him. He's like, no, Mom, I'm here. And he's realizing that his mom has dementia too. And she's sunken into this dementia while he's here. And that's why she keeps calling him, right? But then when you find out, when she's calling him, he's like, Mom, it's me. Mom, it's me. Then cut back to the initial time when he's getting that initial download and the phone is ringing and he's screaming, Mom, Mom, Mom. And everything in this episode took place in 0.04 seconds. Yeah, 0.04 seconds is the length of time the simulation lasted before he basically went brain dead because his phone went off. Because he turned his phone on to take a picture that he shouldn't have been. That's why they took his phone away. And because of that interference from his mom calling, he is then brain dead. It is crazy how all of those things took place in his mind within 0.4 seconds. Which, when it comes to like dreams, like if you just pass out and go for a nap for like, a few minutes, sometimes it feels like you've existed for hours in a different reality in your dream. And then when you wake up, you've only been gone for a little bit. And that's another aspect of this episode. Amazing episode dealing with his fears of Alzheimer's, all that stuff. Amazing. Just so great. I really enjoyed it. And watching it again, I enjoyed it again. Definitely terrifying in and of itself, let alone to find out that all of that stuff took place in his brain. Crazy. So let's move on to my favorite. So that's my second favorite playtest, number 2, season 3 of Black Mirror. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to talk about, are you looking to add some unique and expressive artwork to your home, office, or wardrobe? Look no further than the Many Faces series by Ray Taylor. That's me. These abstract paintings on paper explore the endless possibilities of the human face, capturing unique expressions of emotion, mood, tone, and energy in just a few minimal features. Now you can bring these stunning and thought-provoking pieces into your own space with high-quality prints and t-shirts, featuring designs from the Many Faces series. Or take home a one-of-a-kind original piece for your collection. Don't miss out on this opportunity to add some original and expressive artwork to your home, office, or wardrobe. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com to browse and purchase original artworks, prints, and t-shirts from the Many Faces series today. And now, back to the show. Moving on to my favorite episode of Black Mirror Season 3. I would imagine this is probably a favorite episode of many people, and it is very different in a lot of ways than a lot of the other episodes. So coming in at number 1 is San Junipero, which is more of a love story that almost kind of feels like it has a time travel vibe to it, but is primarily a simulation technology that exists for people who are dying, right? It is a simulated afterlife, but it's also a place where old people can go and relive their younger years. They can go back to the 80s in their younger bodies and experience and enjoy life as it used to be, despite how old they may be in reality. So kind of similar to the show Upload, which I think this is more of a best case scenario where Upload is more, kind of shows the capitalism drawbacks to having an afterlife that's owned by a corporation. Like if you run out of money, then you're kind of imprisoned in this simulation and are kind of screwed. But this is an absolutely beautiful love story, kind of near future sci-fi. You get to see not only this love story take place in 87, but they jump around as she meets this woman, and she grew up in a very religious household, so she was never able to come out as being gay. And now that she's almost dying and she is kind of experiencing this kind of afterlife thing, testing it out before she moves over, she's finally able to be who she always was, to be open about her sexuality. She meets another woman who's already way more comfortable and open with who she is. And they meet in the year 1987, and then she kind of disappears. So she tries to track her down. She goes to 1980. She goes to 1996, which is just an interesting idea that you can just travel through time and experience different eras. I would absolutely love this, especially if it's just something you can go. There are people in this simulation that are considered tourists. Those are people that are old, that just kind of, upload themselves for the weekend. And then there's people who are basically dead, and this is just where they live now. And it kind of discusses how those people are dealing with this afterlife differently. It's amazing. It is a beautiful love story. It is very different tonally than most of the other episodes. It is not brutal necessarily, although it is a dramatic ride. There are ups and downs and heartbreaks and things like that, but overall it is just a beautiful love story of two women that find themselves in this very unique situation and how that kind of unfolds in this episode. I loved it. Beautiful episode. Obviously, it's something I think is a common. People love this episode and rate it very highly, and I agree. Even rewatching all of these, it's a movie that I could see, or it's an episode I could see easily turned into a movie. Like, it is a premise that this episode could easily just be considered a beautiful film just by itself, right? And the end credits playing Heaven is a Place on Earth is kind of a beautiful, perfect kind of song, not only of the era that it came out, but also that is literally, like, the song is playing as a robot is plugging in their consciousness into this massive server bay of all of these people that exist in this afterlife. So yeah, number one, my favorite episode of Black Mirror season 3 is San Junipero. Beautiful love story, beautiful episode. Honorable mention is Men Against Fire. This is amazing. It is basically utilizing the ocular implants that have been in other episodes, but this one is dealing with soldiers and how they label enemies as monsters, but in this reality they literally visualize them as monsters, and then basically one of them is able to hack one of these soldiers so that he sees the reality, and he sees that they're just normal people that he is slaughtering, but with the government's implant, with the government software, he sees them as monsters. So, and kind of, it has a bummer ending, but it's a great episode, but couldn't make the list. Didn't make the list. But definitely an interesting idea that I think would be better explored more than it did in this. Like, I could see that being turned into like a show or an actual movie, and being able to be fleshed out in an even better way. But honorable mention for Men Against Fire, which is the second to the last episode of season 3. But one more time, let me recap my top list of my top 5 episodes from Black Mirror season 3. As I fix my earpiece. This is my top 5 episodes from Black Mirror Season 3. Starting off with number 5 is Hated in the Nation. Number 4 is Nosedive. Number 3 is Shut Up and Dance. Number 2 is Playtest. And my number 1 favorite episode from Black Mirror Season 3 is San Junipero. Please let me know how you would rank the episodes from Season 3. I would love to hear it. Give me your arguments. Let me know which one you think should be at the top of the list. But thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Top 5 from The Ray Taylor Show. I hope you enjoyed my rankings and insights on my top 5 episode picks. Let me know, again, how you would rank them. And don't forget to tune in next Sunday for an all-new episode. And join the conversation by leaving a comment or rating on your favorite podcast platform, or on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. And I will see you again next week for more Top 5.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.